All right, next question. Next question is from Keith. Keith says, how does a beginner get hands-on with AWS? For example, in CCNA, there are home labs and simulations that are really popular. And thanks for the question. Yeah, thank you for the question, Keith. So there's a couple of different ways. I'll let Jeremy start, and then I'll fill in some gaps from there.
So first off, with AWS, so they have what's called their free tier with your AWS account. You go in, you create your own free tier account, and you can play around as much as you want in there, because that's what makes AWS so successful, is that they don't charge you if you're not using it. So you can create your AWS account, you can spin up an EC2 instance to pull up a quick web page, and then you tear it down. Then that's probably cost you like 1 cent. And AWS also have tutorials how to do certain things as well to get that hands-on training for you that helps build your knowledge on basically labs. So when I was studying for AWS, I'm going through the questions and I don't understand that question, I will hop on my AWS account and create the scenario myself and actually see it, because I'm a visual person. And then that helped me understand and then build my level of knowledge when I was getting my certification.
I am a huge fan of the free tier. And what the free tier is that for every service, they have a certain amount that you can use for free. And if you go above that, they'll start charging you. For example, EC2, which is the Elastic Cloud Computing, is their virtual machines. So you can put up a Linux or Windows machine in the cloud for free for up to 750 hours per month, which is essentially one machine running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a month. And so you can have one machine all month, or you can have 5 machines for a couple of days at a time. And the nice thing is you can build out an entire lab. And I tell my pen testing students to do this all the time. Build out a lab. You could put in routers in there. You could put in switches, just like the CCNA gear. And you have Cisco gear you can use there. You could put in Windows machines and Linux machines and anything else you want and build all this stuff out. And when you're using it, turn it on, use it for a couple hours while you're studying, and then shut it all down. And while it's shut down, you're not accumulating hours and you're not getting any bills. If you go above the 750 hours, you will get billed. But again, most AWS services are pennies per hour to run. A virtual machine costs, I think, like 3 cents an hour for a standard micro T3 virtual machine that you can use in the cloud. And you can run really complex things for not a lot of money and get some really good experience. There's also a lot of tutorials online on YouTube, as well as tutorial and lab guides you can find online for free that will say, here's an AWS tutorial on how to do DNS routes. And you will go into Route 53 and perform those actions. That's one way to study. One that costs a little bit more money would be if you're in a course that includes labs. For instance, in courses that are paid, sometimes they will have a lab environment included, or they'll have videos of a lab environment. For example, the course that Jeremy and I are building for Udemy, we have demos throughout the course. So if we're teaching you about EC2, then you'll see Jeremy jump into his AWS environment and show you how to build an EC2 virtual machine, or how to set up a Lambda function, or how to set up a domain name in Route 53. So we're teaching you those things along the way, but it's not as much of a step-by-step, click here, do this, and we validate it for you. We're just showing you a video of how we do it in the real world, and you could follow along in your own AWS environment using those free tiers without any cost. The third way is some courses will come with a lab environment that is very laid out and walks you through it step-by-step, in which case you're using the lab's API keys and cost centers, not your own AWS account. The version that will be on Dion Training, we will have labs built into it like that. Right now, if you're in my Security Plus course or my CISA Plus course or my Pentest Plus course at Dion Training, you'll get to certain points, like I'll show you a video of how to do a password crack, for instance, for one of my cybersecurity courses. And then the next lesson, it would say, click here to enter the lab. And when you enter the lab, on the left side, it'll say, go into this virtual machine, enter this command, do this, and it gives you the steps from 1 to 20. And on the right is a virtual machine that you're logging into and performing those actions. For AWS, we have the same thing built out. And when we launch our AWS course, you'll have access to that if you are buying that on Dion Training. And that is a very guided hands-on environment to help you walk step by step through it. So those are kind of the 3 big ways of doing it. But AWS is just a virtual cloud environment. So you can log in and do all these things on real equipment in the cloud by following different tutorials, different websites, or the course itself will have videos in it to teach you that.
And to add to that, Jason, too, like you could save templates so you don't have to create the environments from scratch when you come back in, when you power them down. Like you could save it as a template and then start your instances and stuff back up from the template that you was previously working on. So you can still save your costs for your free tier and not being charged when you're studying.
When it comes to spreading out and AWS and cloud in general, it's really important to look at your costs and keep your costs under control. You can spend a lot of money to do things, or you can spend a little money and do things. It really does depend on what equipment you choose inside of AWS, being able to understand that. I will tell you that on my team, we have 5 developers on our team that do all of our AWS stuff that we use for our company. I would say probably 80% of what we use with our company is underneath the free tier and we don't get charged. That includes logging, automations, Lambda functions, and things like that. The stuff we are being charged on, my bill last month was about $350. And for that $350, I'm supporting a website with almost 1 million users on it. And so if you design it well and you know what you're doing, you can really get those costs down. Because when we first started, we were paying almost $2,000 a month for that same website. But my coders are really good and they were able to break it apart, and we do everything serverless. And so the way they've coded it and the way they've gotten efficiencies, we've been able to get those costs way, way down. And so this is one of those places where a good engineer is worth their money, because he took my cost from $2,000 a month down to $300 a month. That's $1,700 a month saving every month for the next 12 months. That's a large portion of his salary that he was able to make back for me as the business owner.